This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. Well, the number one trophy property in Donald Trump's stable, 40 Wall Street in Lower Manhattan, catty corner from the New York Stock Exchange, looks like it may be an albatross around his neck and may sink his financial empire because it is under tremendous financial pressure right now because of a lack of leasing, a lack of office leases being signed, and a very high debt to equity ratio. How do we know all that? Because when Donald Trump took out his loan in 2015 from Ladder Capital, a very large commercial mortgage-backed security, what we call CMBS lender, that loan was packaged along with dozens of other loans around the country of various types, from commercial to residential, into what's called a CMBS shelf. You put various assets, Class A, Class B, a little bit of C, it's like sausage making, onto a mortgage-backed lending shelf. That shelf becomes securitized, meaning regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, and people can invest not just in one property like 40 Wall Street, but in the dozens of properties that make up the portfolio of the assets that back the security. This is an asset-backed security market. The upside for that is people like Donald Trump don't have to sign personally for loans that are approved to be part of a CMBS shelf. The downside is they have to fit a very narrow lending criteria, and all of the financials about the asset, as long as it's part of the shelf, part of the security, get reported publicly through the SEC. That's how we know that Wells Fargo, which is the special servicer for the series of loans that are within the shelf that Donald Trump's asset sits on, has put Donald Trump on notice and notified the investors, and therefore done it through the SEC notice requirements, that it is underwater, that the 40 Wall Street does not have enough high-end leasing. It has a vacancy rate that is pushing 18% in Manhattan, that it has an expense increase of over 11%. And you don't have to go to MBA school or be a real estate titan to understand if your leases, your revenue is down by more than 18% and your expenses are up by 11%, you may not meet the continued requirements of your loan to keep it in good standing with the lender. And if that happens, you go into what's called special assets, which is a nice way of saying we're about to put you into default and take your property from you, but we'll give you an opportunity to try to work it out for us. And this clock for Donald Trump is ticking towards special asset default for 40 Wall Street. He claims it's worth $550 million. It is part of the civil fraud case for over $250 million brought by Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, that is going to trial in New York, just up the street from 40 Wall Street, at the New York Supreme Court courthouse in front of Judge Engoron. It's going to trial April 2nd. You can rub your eyes, wake up, and this is not a made-up thing. The judge has already said in a prior set of rulings that we've reported on my podcast, Legal AF, that this case is going to trial hell or high water, 10 a.m. April 2nd. And if the New York Attorney General is successful in proving civil fraud against Donald Trump, all of his adult children, not Barron, Eric, Don Jr., and I don't think, though, the child he had with Marla Maples, I don't think Tiffany is involved. And then another 15 co-defendants, including Alan Weisselberg, longtime CFO, the controller for the company, and all of that. If she's successful in proving her case in front of a jury of progressive Democrats in Manhattan, let's say, she'll be able to take $250 million or more off of Donald Trump, put his company, Trump Organization, out of business, and stop him and the children from ever serving in New York corporations again as officers and directors. That is the very real thing that could happen down the street from 40 Wall Street. His number one asset, yes, he owns Trump Tower. Yes, he has some licensing deals around New York City and in other places. But his number one piece of equity that he claims is $300 or $400 million worth is in 40 Wall Street. which is now on credit watch. Now, his other properties were on credit watch last year that make up his empire. Trump Tower was on credit watch. Trump International across Columbus Circle off of Central Park, also on credit watch. So this is a bad thing when you're on credit watch. It is one step away from losing the property if you can't do a workout. And right now, Donald Trump, whose companies have been found guilty of 17 counts of felony tax evasion and tax fraud and business fraud in New York by the Manhattan DA's office just 2 months ago, is not going to be able to get a loan from any legitimate bank in the United States as a result. So he's either going to have to come out of his pocket, and he's not that liquid. I mean, despite his refinancing over the last 6 months, maybe he's got $300 or $400 million in the bank. I'm guessing. If you have $300 or $400 million and you're looking at losing a $400 million property and a $250 million or more judgment against you, plus interest, you're down to living on credit cards very, very quickly, which is exactly where people want Donald Trump to be, and that's exactly where he's heading. It starts here, right? The dominoes start to fall as his real estate empire starts to crater. And the best place to look for that is what happens at 40 Wall Street, the building that is now facing a potential foreclosure as part of the securitized loan for which it is a part, which means I'll be able to get information from the SEC disclosures and I'll be able to report them in hot takes and on my midweek and weekend podcast, Legal AF, which I co-anchor on Wednesdays with Karen Friedman-Agnifilo and on Saturdays with Ben Meisalis. If you like what you're hearing here on Hot Takes, we do them about once a day. You can follow me at MS Popok. And again, Legal AF on Wednesdays and Saturdays. This is Michael Popok, Legal AF reporting.
Our blue wall stopped the red wave and election deniers got denied election. That's why we're celebrating with the new Democracy Prevails team. We've got lots of work to do, but we should all be proud that when democracy was tested, democracy prevailed. You've earned this. Don't wait. Get yours right now at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.